Don't you think of that when you think of unconditional love? Everyone always talks about that. How our pets and our animals, whether they're cats, dogs, horses, or whatever, they show us that unconditional love. I think it's because they can't think like we do, right? They don't judge like we do. They just are present. And what a great gift, what a great lesson to us if we just pay attention. That's the hard part. So, there is truly only one kind of love that fills us up, that makes us whole, that gives us the happiness that we're seeking, and that's unconditional love. Somehow we intuitively realize that anything other than that kind of love isn't really love at all. It's like an imitation, a simulation. Unconditional love is known as affection without any limitations, without any conditions attached to it. Thich Nhat Hanh wrote this: "The desire to be loved, to the extent that it is fueled by any underlying agendas or feelings of isolation and loneliness, can be very problematic. Often it turns a relationship into some version of, 'I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine.'" And he said love is not contractual. And that's the truth. Unconditional love is caring about the happiness of another without any thought for, okay, what's it going to bring to me? What do I get in return for giving you this? Friends, family, they can be completely unconditional in their love with us. However, truth be told, we are programmed in our culture to be conditional, to expect something in return for the love that we share, for that which we give out. Much of the time, we place some degree of condition on a lot of our communications, our interactions, our relationships even, because we are conditioned to only give love when it's reciprocated. And often, giving love according to what we think is worthy of our love. Now, Spirit says, because Spirit talks to me, I'm just saying, but Spirit says, love unconditionally all and everyone. Not just those people that you want to go to lunch with or that you want to hang out with. All and everyone. Unconditional love is not a loan that we need to repay. It's a stringless gift from the heart. Loving unconditionally is the act of extending ourselves. Vulnerability is included in that. Extending ourselves into the uncharted emotional territory with the belief that regardless of the outcome, we still want to benefit the other. So you imagine love as a behavior in and of itself. It's the satisfaction of that feeling you get when you act a particular way towards someone, not necessarily when someone acts a particular way toward you. Because then it becomes an act of that pure generosity, pure love. To love someone unconditionally doesn't mean that the act of love, that unconditional love, is going to be comfortable, and it doesn't mean it's going to be easy. We weren't necessarily put on this planet to have everything easy. You probably haven't noticed that you've had some things going on in your life. And we see that right now on our planet, where things aren't necessarily easy or comfortable. Many people are doing things that we don't embrace, that we don't agree with. And by the way, we don't have to embrace all of it, and we don't have to agree with any of it, or embrace any of it for that matter. However, you knew that was coming, right? However, We are called to recognize the essence of their being and that it is absolutely no different than the essence of your being. Do you ever stop and really think about that? When something's going on, this terrible tragedy in London just yesterday, their being is no different than your being. Our essence is all from the same stuff. Do we embrace what they did? No. Do we agree with it? Absolutely not. And they are the same as we are, in essence. So here's the beauty of unconditional love. When we make mistakes, when we fail to do what other people want us to do, and even if we get in somebody's way, and they don't feel disappointed, and they don't feel irritated at us, we have unconditional love. And that love alone has the power to heal all wounds, to bind people together, and to create relationships beyond our imagination. And as we travel the spiritual path, I think the most profound change or lesson that we experience is moving from the I, it's all about me, to we. It's about us. Because we realize that we're in this thing called life together. And we realize that what affects one is affecting all. And that the us and them is truly all one. And that realization, of course, comes through that unconditional love. As spiritual finders, and I say finders because I read once that if you're a seeker, you're never going to find, right? Because you'll always be seeking. So we're spiritual finders. We notice ourselves willing to take responsibility for our own experiences. We see the value of inviting in that higher consciousness to fill us with that light, with that knowledge of that pure love. And in reality, that's what we truly are. Total, complete, unconditional love. That is what your essence is. Our only issue with it is that we don't realize it, or we don't realize it all the time. It's not our divine reality that is ever in question. It's how much of that reality that we allow ourselves to express, that we allow ourselves to experience. So to embrace that reality, it takes a transformation of our heart. And that is much more different. Much more different? No, I don't think so. English teacher? It is much more and much different than making an intellectual decision. When we make those decisions from our heart, we need a spiritual experience to help shift us through that. And we must open our hearts unconditionally, and we must be willing to be vulnerable. And being vulnerable is not a bad thing. It teaches us to love wholeheartedly. That's part of living life fully. We're called to love with our whole heart, to be open to those magical experiences that this kind of love will bring into our lives. To bring us that peace, that happiness, that freedom from being wide open. Now, we all have within us the ability to develop a more magnificent life experience. We absolutely do. It's our work, our own personal work, to go deep and to find out what that magnificent looks like for you personally. Because it does look different for everybody. Enlightenment is not a learning, Marianne Williamson says. It is an unlearning, a letting go of all the fears that we've gathered as we've walked our path of life. And I really think that is hugely important to remember, because we all pick stuff up on our way. And it doesn't have to inhibit us. At some point, we understand it no longer matters how we got to think or behave in the way that we do, whether it's our fears or our joys, our pleasures. What matters is acknowledging anything that we may want to change and then figuring out and deciding how to make that change. We're always a choice, right here, right now, every day, every moment. And to choose differently is a freedom that we have, to see life differently, to experience life in a different way. If something we're doing or feeling or experiencing doesn't feel good anymore, it's time to make a change. It's that simple. We can do that by choosing love to help us transform any issues that we have in our lives, to help us change our perspective, to help us change how we see the world, how we see people, how we see events and our experiences. Many times we have to really look sincerely at the things that we're not crazy about ourselves before we can see just how much love is within and how much love that we truly are. And loving ourselves is first and foremost in the unconditional love arena. You have to start here. I would invite you to go deep. I would invite you to really look at what you see in you, what you see maybe you want to change, what you see you want to expand upon, because here's what I know. Never be afraid of self-examination. Never be afraid of going deeply into how you feel about yourself, because I guarantee you, you will find a beautiful, loving soul within. Often we try and hide who we are rather than heal who we are. Because we're afraid if we show our true selves, something icky might show up. It might be ugly. People might notice. We naively sometimes think or even hope that if we don't look at our wounds, they will go away on their own. Push it down, let's pretend it's not there. It takes emotional courage to look deeply into self. It takes emotional courage to face what's in there. And if we don't use that courage to go within, you know what happens? It's really interesting. We start finding fault in others. Have you noticed that? And what we do is when we find fault in others, we focus on their wounds, because we don't focus on their wounds because they don't appear on the surface. We focus on their faults because they are. They are on the surface. We don't know someone's story. We don't know what's going on inside of them. We don't know what they've been through. And it's not our work to judge. It is our work to love unconditionally. It's worth remembering that when we reach for the highest within ourselves, people around us will begin to feel called to reach to their highest self. Course in Miracles says the greatest power God has given us to change the world is the power to change our thoughts about the world. And as we do that, the world changes. So, pay attention to your thoughts. Keep them positive. Keep them in the direction of what you want to see in life, not what you don't want to see. There's no room there for anger and frustration. Only unconditional love. Is this an easy task? Absolutely not. And I'm not telling you I do it every day, 24 hours, because I don't. It's a process for all of us. As we remember who we are and stand in our power. We act, we think, and we experience life differently. So for instance, if we find ourselves starting to judge somebody, just stop, take a moment. Remember their eternal essence. Remember their eternal innocence. That is the birth of our higher selves, of our better selves. It's a gradual and a continuous process. Mistakes, slip-ups, they happen. You can't be hard on yourself. That is not allowed. You have to be nice to you. And if you remember nothing else that you hear today, please hold on to this thought. Mistakes, things we don't like, they don't change anyone else's essence. It doesn't change their essence. And that's something that we really want to sit with and hold on to. Those things that we see as mistakes or bad decisions or whatever we want to call them may simply because somebody else has a complete different perspective of life and the world. And this is where forgiveness comes in. We get to do that. Forgiveness of others, and most importantly, forgiveness of ourselves. And that is very freeing. It can be incredibly hard to forgive someone who's caused pain in our heart or has made decisions that are so far out of our comfort zone we don't know what to do with it. However, got that word again, however, holding on to those negative feelings and letting it reside in your heart, that's toxic for you. We don't want to do that. Harboring that energy is hurtful on a spiritual level, and over time, absolutely can shift into being hurtful on a physical level. Author and philosopher Piero Ferrucci says that forgiving is not something we do, it is something we are. So we want to be in that continual process, and we can do that through that unconditional love. Because the power of unconditional love is with us every moment of every day, all the time. And that amazing energy is merely available to us by recognizing it, by our conscious use of it. When we choose to love one another, we transcend that lower energy of our egoic perceptions and we rise to that higher truth. We recognize our oneness, we recognize our wholeness, our interconnectedness. It is a universal and an unconditional love that recognizes the beauty in life every moment of every day. It's of a higher nature, a natural expression that doesn't expect an outcome. It's giving simply for the sake of giving. And it's in the sharing and giving of love to others that we receive that same thing in return. As you give love, you will absolutely experience love. So express the love to the world around you, and guess what? The world will reflect back to you that same power of love. Each of us has a desire to understand and realize that experience of unconditional love. And all the while, guess what? It's right here, ready within us. Ready to be given freely, ready to be experienced. So love with your whole heart, love fully, love passionately. And so I want to close with this thought. Unconditional love is the expression of our kindest self. It is a part of growth and generosity we all benefit from every moment of every day. Thank you so much for being here while I shared this truth as I understand it.